Hi, my name is Renata. I'm 38 and I've been married to Polo for 15 years. We've never had children, mainly because Polo never wanted to, and for me, it was never a priority either. We live in Santa Catarina in a condominium where I am the property manager, and Paolo works as a manager in a large company in the region. Our lives, although peaceful in many ways, are marked by very different routines. Paolo spends most of his time away, involved in his work and the many responsibilities that his position demands. I, on the other hand, end up spending a lot of time alone at home, especially at night, as emergencies often arise that require Paul's presence. Over time, I got used to dealing with the daily chores and managing the condominium, but that didn't mean I didn't miss having company at home. This constant absence was felt even more recently when our doorman, who had worked with us for many years, asked to leave because he was moving to another city. This put me in the unexpected situation of having to deal with replacing the doorman, which turned out to be a much more challenging task than I could have imagined. I spent weeks trying to find someone qualified to fill the position, but the search was frustrating. All the candidates who appeared either didn't meet our needs or didn't have the necessary experience. I found myself increasingly overburdened, accumulating the functions of liquidator, housewife, and now having to supervise the condo's concierge. That's when I decided to do something else. Hire a company specializing in recruitment. That way they could carry out the entire selection process and present me with a trained professional, ready to start work. This decision came as a relief, considering that I was already overwhelmed with the responsibilities of the building and feeling the weight of Polo's absence. A few days later, the new employee arrived. His name was Andre, a young man of 1.90 meters in height, with black hair and eyes. His appearance was striking, but not by conventional standards of beauty. He had an engaging presence, a natural, discreet, and very charming beauty. He was the kind of person who captured the attention of everyone around him effortlessly. He quickly captivated everyone around him with his friendliness and professional attitude, as well as being extremely competent at his job. From the outset, I treated Andre in a strictly professional manner. I've always been a very focused and practical person, and even though I recognized that he had a beauty that didn't go unnoticed, I never allowed this to affect our working relationship. To me, he was just another employee, and besides, I was married. My dedication to my work at the condominium and to my relationship with Polo were always priorities, so I treated Andre with the utmost normality and professionalism. He, in turn, also behaved in an exemplary manner. He was a competent and helpful employee, always willing to help in any way he could, which made it much easier for us to get along. As the days went by, we began to develop a natural friendship. Andre was easy to talk to, and because he spent a lot of time at the condominium, he often offered to help me with small tasks, which ended up generating an unexpected closeness. He was helpful and seemed to enjoy being around, and our relationship started to become lighter and more relaxed. One day, after a long afternoon sorting out some administrative issues in the building, I went to the concierge to check if everything was okay and if Andre needed anything. We chatted for a while about how things were going, and when I saw that everything was in order, I said goodbye and turned to leave. However, before I could take a few more steps, Andre called me back. I was distracted, but when I looked back, I noticed that he seemed hesitant, as if he was about to say something important. Curious, I asked what was going on. It was at that moment that Andre, his voice a little shaky, confessed that he was attracted to me. I was completely surprised by this confession. It wasn't something I had expected to hear, especially at that moment. The situation caught me off guard, and I felt a little awkward. However, I remained calm. I took a deep breath and calmly explained that although I appreciated his sincerity, I was married and couldn't reciprocate his feelings. I said that our relationship should remain professional without crossing that line. Andre, visibly embarrassed, apologized immediately, saying that he didn't want to make me uncomfortable and that everything would stay the same. The situation didn't go any further than that, and we went on with our lives in a respectful and professional manner from that day on. After that episode, although I reflected on what had happened, nothing changed between us. We continued to work together, maintaining a cordial relationship without any discomfort. Andre continued to be the same efficient and helpful employee, and I carried on with my routine at the condominium, even though every now and then my mind went back to that unexpected moment. Life took its course, and soon the daily chores and responsibilities absorbed me again. At home, my thoughts kept revolving around the situation. The emptiness I felt because of Paulo's constant absence only seemed to grow. Andre, with his presence, beauty, politeness, and kindness, began to occupy a space in my mind that I couldn't ignore. Knowing that he wanted me in a way awakened something inside me. The attention he gave me, something I hadn't received for a long time, made me feel alive and wanted again. From then on, I began to pay more attention to how I presented myself every time I knew I was going to pass through the gate. I chose nice clothes, sometimes a little more provocative, perhaps wanting to feel Andre's admiring gaze on me. The desire for this sensation was growing, albeit silently inside me. Then, on a long holiday, something curious happened. It seemed to have been arranged. Almost 90% of the residents of the condominium traveled. The normally busy building was practically deserted. Paulo, as always, also had to go on a business trip, once again to meet an urgent demand in another city. This left me alone, like so many other times. By coincidence or fate, Andre was working that night, and not just his usual shift. The night porter had asked Andre to cover his shift, as he would also be traveling. This meant that Andre would be in the building for 24 hours straight. The thought of knowing that he would be there, alone, all night, stirred something in me that I couldn't control. That night, Jorge's loneliness and absence seemed even heavier, but at the same time there was something new inside me. A mixture of repressed desire and adrenaline was taking over, and I knew that when I saw Andre, something might happen. I chose my best outfit, as if preparing for a special occasion, and headed for the reception. When Luis saw me, his eyes shone with admiration, and he didn't hesitate to comment on how beautiful I looked. I felt a mixture of embarrassment and pleasure, thanked him with a half-hearted smile, and we stayed there, talking about life, something we had done so many times. But this time it seemed different. There was a tension in the air, an unspoken possibility that hung between us. I was vulnerable, open to new experiences. I felt the excitement of something forbidden and dangerous, something that could bring a sensation I hadn't experienced for a long time. At a certain point in the conversation, Andre mentioned that there was a leak in the wall at the entrance, and asked me to come in and check it out. I followed him without hesitation, although deep down I knew that this simple excuse could be the start of something more. As I entered the gatehouse, I looked around, asking where exactly the leak was. Andre leisurely approached me. The tension between us grew by the second. I could feel his breathing, his body so close to mine. And then slowly he leaned in, bringing his lips close to mine. There was no hesitation on my part. When he finally kissed me, I responded without a second thought. Desire spoke louder, and at that moment it was as if all the emptiness I carried inside me was filled. The kiss was intense, and all I felt was a mixture of relief, adrenaline, and repressed desire. Inside the gatehouse there was a kitchen where they prepared their meals. Still kissing me, he threw me over the sink. That day I was wearing a dress, so he lifted my dress, took out his tool, and put it all inside me. A mixture of sensation, guilt, desire, and adrenaline took over my body. I couldn't say no to anything because everything was so delicious. We stayed there for around 30 minutes, making delicious love. After we'd finished, I got up and left as if nothing had happened. To finish the story, I can say that over time the guilt that might initially have arisen simply disappeared. The truth is that sometime after my involvement with Andre, I discovered that my husband, Jorge, had also been cheating on me. It was a revelation that, in a way, brought me a strange sense of relief. That moral weight I might have been carrying was replaced by a kind of indifference. It was as if, on learning of his betrayal, I felt validated for having followed my own desires, without having to worry about internal or external judgments. From that point on, our marriage took a completely different turn. There were no big arguments or confrontations about what had happened. In fact, it was as if we had both accepted, without words, that our relationship had changed profoundly. He continued with his business trips, his constant absences, and I, for my part, got on with my life, finding in Andre a source of desire and, in a way, comfort. Today, Jorge and I live in a kind of silent agreement. He goes his own way, doing whatever he wants, and I do the same. We pretend that everything is fine, we keep up appearances to society, friends, and family. But deep down, we know that our marriage isn't what it used to be. We don't worry too much about fidelity or what the other person is doing. We just get on with it, each with our own priorities and distractions. As for Andre, he still works at the concierge, and our understanding remains the same. He continues to be attentive and helpful, and I continue to visit him frequently, almost weekly. There's no longer that initial nervousness or guilt I felt at the beginning. It's all become part of the routine, something I do naturally. The emptiness I used to feel when Paulo was away has been filled in a way that, strange as it may seem, has brought a certain peace to my life. In the end, our marriage continues in a functional way, each on their own path, but without too much friction. Perhaps to outsiders everything seems normal, but the truth is that we live in a tacit agreement of freedom, where commitment and desire have taken completely different forms.